Lee here. So if you remember last time we glued this flame maple on, we prepared the body, cut it all out. It's all looking really nice at the moment. So what I've done in the meantime off camera is I just wanted to start putting the measurements on for where the bridge goes, the pickups, and obviously most importantly to keep everything straight, the neck pocket. So to get the neck pocket lined up correctly, because I've handmade the neck, I didn't just want to use a template. I wanted to make sure I didn't go too large because my neck heel joint might be slightly different in size. So using an elaborate setup of a straight edge, I very lightly clamped the neck to the body. And then I adjusted it and got it all centered correctly using string and a straight edge, just so I could draw round to get the shape of my neck. Because my heel joint is very slightly off and I don't want to start putting it on the sander and taking more material off because it's almost spot on. So I'm happy with how it is. I just wanted to make sure my heel pocket matched. So as you can see, I've already put a chisel into the edge of this maple top. I'm just a bit worried because I'm not that great at using the router. I wanted to make sure I didn't accidentally chip this top. So what I've done is I've just pushed a chisel into my line just to make sure when I start routing to the edge it won't accidentally chip and flake off any of this maple. So I've done that already, as you can see. The next step is to use my router. I've got a few different sized bits. Now, just to start this off, what I'll do is I'll clamp some pieces of wood on there. And I've got one of the router bits with the edge. So that means I know when I've got the wood clamped on there, I can start it off, but it won't go further than my guide, than my template. So I can just start it off. But once I've done that, I can remove the pieces of wood from the top once I've gone into the body, because then this small ball bearing on this router bit, I don't know what it's called, but that will stop me going any further. So I'll be able to keep it square to itself and finish off. I need to go into here about 2 centimeters. So that's what I'm aiming for. I think default, possibly the fender specification is 19 millimeters, and I'm doing 20 millimeters. But that's because I've left my fretboard slightly thicker than Fender standard, so I just need to go down a little bit more. I don't want to go too deep because I can always cut wood out, but you can't add it very easily, and I don't want to have to lift it up if I go too far. So 20 mil should be perfect for this. And that should give me roughly the right height, and my bridge will have enough compensation in it to cover the height of the neck. So with all that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to prep this for my first route of the neck pocket. And to do that, I'm going to use... so I have a nice straight piece of wood that I'm just going to clamp to the edges of the line. And then I'm going to use that as the guide with my router bit just to go in and start taking material out of this. I'm going to go slowly. Yeah, I really don't want to make a mistake at this point, but hopefully that should start me off and it will stop making me any drastic mistakes, because that will stop my router from going anywhere if it accidentally digs in. Okay, so that's routed out. It's pretty good. It's not quite as tight as I was expecting. I thought I had sort of done the measurements to leave me more room to try and make it wider. But as it turns out, it is exactly right. But it's so exact that there's not enough pressure on the edges to hold the weight of the neck in on its own. So it is very good. It's very accurate, but it's not quite tight enough just to hold itself in, unfortunately. But that's fine, because obviously once it's screwed in, it won't make much difference. But what it does mean is I've already checked the centre line. It is perfectly centred, so that's the good news. And also, because it's not quite tight, there's a tiny bit of wiggle room, so I can make sure this neck is properly centred when I finally put the screws in. So it's good enough. It's not absolutely perfect. I would have liked it tighter, but then if it's too tight and the neck's not completely centred, it's a little bit harder to try and remove material to try and centre it properly. So there's enough wiggle room that I can get this neck properly centred. So I'm happy with that. That's good. Because the next step is to try and line up the neck screws, get them screwed and bolted on so I know exactly where the neck is going to be set. And that means I can then check the rest of the dimensions to the 25.5 inch scale length. So I've drawn a line here, but obviously once I've measured up the bridge and I've seen where the two bridge pins go, because it's a tremolo bridge, they may be too close to the pickups on that 25.5 inch line. So what that means is I'll just redraw the pickup template a little bit further forwards because I've got some room. So the pickup templates, I was just using an HSS fender scratch plate, and that works perfectly for what I need. So all I will do is I'll make sure I've got the center line on the scratch plate, but I'll just move it forward slightly once I've lined up the 25.5 inches on the bridge. So we won't worry about that for now. The next step is to get this neck screwed in and lined up straight so I can do the final dimensions. So let's move on to that. So now the neck's done and it fits nicely, everything's nice and straight. I've managed to start drawing on all of the other components that I need to cut out. So obviously we need to do the pickup cavities, humbucker 2 single coils, and also the bridge. I'm using a tremolo, so I need to go all the way through with a thinner gap, but on the reverse side I'll make the hole a bit bigger. So on the face, the front of the body, the hole for the tremolo is actually a bit smaller, so you don't see the gap as much and the bridge fits over it correctly. I've also already lined up the controls, and I'll just put a little dot into the body so I can drill through there as well, and I'll need to route from behind to get the electronics in, and I've also marked up where the selector switch goes. Now, if you remember, I've bought a sort of pre-soldered electronics component kit just to make it easier. That's a direct replacement for a Strat style guitar. So as long as I stick to this template and drill it out correctly from behind, that should slot straight in, and it should be an easy thing to do. So with all of that drawn out, all that's left to do now is get the router on and start routing all of this out. So I've got the new router, I've made a template, let's just carry on and get this cut out. So just the final piece of routing to do, I just need to take the edge off so I can put the covers on and they fit flush with the back of the body. So I've got a special router bit on there to do that. So that's the final part, let's get that done now.